Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of Ignition Time. The entire pandemic has actually got me thinking. Why is it that some individuals suffered more than others? Well, setting aside the fact that some individuals were in travel, leisure, entertainment, and hospitality, setting aside the fact, and by the way, this is super important, that individuals with a lower education level were impacted more. Individuals who were Hispanic or African American were impacted more. One of the things that really jumped out at me when I took a closer look at all the data was that the individuals who got hit the hardest as a direct result of the pandemic had a very small amount, if any, emergency savings. I'm talking about money for a rainy day. I'm talking about the money that you need to be able to pay your bills, to put food on the table, to be able to keep the lights on if you lose your job. And there were millions of our fellow Americans who found themselves in this type of a situation through no fault of their own. Never before in your life did you have to be dependent on unemployment benefits or stimulus checks. You would never have imagined that you would be on YouTube looking for information on unemployment benefits or stimulus checks. And this, in a sense, is humiliating. This, in a sense, is disturbing. Yet at the same time, you are a customer of the unemployment benefits system. You, in a sense, are a customer of a system that is supposed to help you when things go bad. And the reason I'm mentioning all this is a brand new article in the Wall Street Journal. Here's the article in the Wall Street Journal: the new employer benefit matching emergency savings. Now, the pandemic has actually highlighted the need for employees to have money set aside for a rainy day. So what are employers doing? Folks, employers are adding emergency savings accounts to employee benefit programs, and this is a desire to attract and retain workers and help them better prepare for unexpected life situations like this global pandemic. So what are employers doing? Employers are helping employees with these kinds of emergency savings programs in addition to traditional benefit programs like an IRA, in an effort to make sure that employees are better prepared for unexpected expenses. And this is a way for them to attract and retain employees. This is very, very important. Since the pandemic, more and more companies are encouraging employees to fund emergency accounts by offering them cash and other incentives. Here's an important comment from Leigh Phillips, who's the CEO of nonprofit Save a Life. And Leigh says this: employers are aware that if you can cover your day-to-day expenses, you're not going to save for long-term goals such as retirement. This is very important. So their company, Leigh's company, the nonprofit Save a Life, rewards users who participate in activities like savings challenges with chances to win prizes as much as $10,000. Emergency savings, typically 3 to 6 months of expenses held in cash, is the way to start someone with a saving habit. Now, Save a Life has 500,000 users, including some who participate through employers. In July, KFC's nonprofit KFC Foundation began offering workers up to $240 over 6 months to match contributions to an emergency savings account. This is very important. According to David Amendola, who's a senior director at the consulting firm Willis Towers Watson, employers are taking action in part because the pandemic, I quote, highlighted how unprepared many Americans are for financial emergencies. In fact, according to recent data from Willis Towers Watson, they surveyed 464 employers. 26% offer an emergency account in their retirement plan, and 19% said they are likely to add them. Now, there was a demand from employers, so banks, nonprofits, startups, and 401k record keepers also had demand, and they all are launching workplace programs designed to help workers build emergency savings, and this comes through payroll deductions. In other words, a part of your payroll gets deducted and goes into an emergency savings account. Tom Finley, who's the co-founder of Ascent Living Communities, which owns 3 senior living facilities in Denver, said, now is as tough a time as we have ever seen attracting and retaining staff. In other words, companies are finding it hard to attract and retain staff. So this is very interesting. So on the 1st of November, Ascent plans to introduce an emergency savings account from Sunny Day Fund Solutions with a company-funded interest rate of 17% to 36%, capped at $300 a year. The longer you are tenured with us, the higher the interest rate will be. So basically what these companies are saying, hey, if you set aside money for an emergency savings account, we will actually pay you interest on that money. And this is a way for them to attract and retain employees. And the longer an employee stays with them, the higher that interest rate will be. In fact, Mr. Finley said that 3/4 of the firm's 300 employees, which includes administrators, nurses, chefs, and caregivers, are paid an hourly wage of $20 or less, which he says is slightly above market. He also said this: I see the Sunny Day Fund as a complement to the 401k plan. My hope is that 80 to 90% of the employee base will contribute to either a 401k or the Sunny Day Fund. In fact, a growing number of companies, including UPS, are letting workers divert a portion of their paychecks into rainy day funds within 401k plans. But due to legal and tax complications, many currently offer emergency savings programs outside the 401k using bank or brokerage accounts. More and more companies are actually starting to do this, and so regulators have been trying to find ways to remove barriers that make it difficult for employers to automatically enroll workers into emergency savings account, something the 2006 Pension Protection Act did in 401k accounts. Now, due to the widespread adoption of automatic enrollment in workplace retirement accounts, the IRAs, the 401ks, employee participation has risen dramatically in recent years. In other words, folks, the government wants to make it easier for companies to encourage individuals to set aside money for a rainy day, but the government hasn't figured it out yet. The government, up until now, has tried to make it easy for employees and employers to have retirement programs. But what about emergency money? What about rainy day money? What about money for a situation where you've lost your job and you don't have 6 months of savings set aside? Folks, we all plan for retirement. If you're a parent, you're probably thinking about college for your kids, but you've probably thought about your retirement. But have you ever thought about rainy day funds? Have you ever thought about money for a rainy day? Folks, this is something we all need to pay close attention to. In fact, the Federal Reserve in 2019 reported that 37% of adults don't have the funds to cover an emergency that cost them $400. Yes, you heard that right. 37% of American adults don't have the money for an emergency that costs them $400. Nearly a quarter of the 11,000 respondents to a November 2020 Federal Reserve survey said that they were worse off financially than a year before. Those who were laid off and people with less education, like I mentioned at the start of this video, were more likely to have fallen behind. Now, a lot of employers say workers who are stressed out about money are often less productive, and so what they want to do is try and ease the financial burden as best as they can. In fact, Becky Dillon, who's 31 years old, said an emergency savings account that she began funding in 2019 through a program sponsored by her employer, Alorica Inc., helped her family weather the recession. She works for a call center in West Virginia, and she initially hesitated to sign up. And she said, I was like, I don't need that. I can save money on my own, until I remembered that I wasn't saving. In fact, Ms. Dillon received a $20 deposit from her employer-sponsored program when she linked her bank account to the Save Her Life platform. She said she also received $240 in matching funds for saving over $600 over 6 months. The savings, which came in part from eliminating fast food, grew to over $1,000 before the pandemic. That allowed her family to make ends meet when her husband, who's a mechanic, had his hours reduced. And so recently, Ms. Dillon actually collected enough money in her emergency account to buy a computer. She said this: even saving a little bit can soften the blow of unexpected expenses. If I hadn't been able to buy the computer, that would have put me into credit card debt and could have caused a big spiral downward. Folks, at the end of the day, if you need to increase your emergency savings, there is both a personal responsibility. I don't need to tell you that because we're all adults, but there is also an employer responsibility and a government responsibility, just like employers and the governments facilitate IRAs and 401ks. I think an emergency savings program that is potentially facilitated by the government, and by the way, we are likely to see some action from the government soon. In fact, this month, Senator Cory Booker, who's a Democrat from New Jersey, introduced a bill to make it easier for employers to auto-enroll workers in emergency savings accounts. Workers would be able to opt out, by the way. And a bill sponsored by James Lankford, who's a Republican from Oklahoma, and Michael Bennet, a Democrat from Colorado, would allow workers a one penalty-free annual withdrawal of up to $1,000 from a retirement account for emergency expenses. Employees would have to repay that money before taking another distribution. So, work is already underway in Congress to try and make it easy for individuals to tap into their 401ks for emergency expenses. And there was a provision for that as far as the CARES Act was concerned. But there needs to be a separate, dedicated effort from employers and the government to encourage individuals to make it essentially a tax advantage for individuals to contribute to an emergency savings account. Not just an IRA and a 401k, not just a health savings account, not just a 529 if you're a parent, but also an emergency savings account. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda with Ignition Time. Please click the like button. Please click subscribe. Please enable notifications. A lot of effort goes into the creation and production of these videos, and I appreciate your support when you click the like button, when you click subscribe. Every little bit matters. Every like matters. Every comment matters. Every subscription matters. Please don't think, hey, someone else is going to do it, I don't need to do it. If you do it, it matters. It helps me, and I will be smiling back at you. Please click the like button. Please click subscribe. Please enable notifications. I hope this video helped. I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.